The security system locked me inside my penthouse office with a sharp click that echoed through the glass walls. My brother Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, his mouth hanging open as he stared at the panoramic view of downtown stretching 40 stories below us. His designer sneakers, the ones he'd bragged about for weeks, looked suddenly cheap against my marble floors. "This is yours?" His voice cracked. I smiled, remembering every insult he'd thrown at me over the years. Every time he'd called me pathetic for renting that tiny studio apartment. Every family dinner where he'd parked his leased BMW, where everyone could see it while I arrived by bus. "All mine," I said softly. His face went pale. I watched him calculate in real time, his eyes darting across the custom furniture, the original artwork, the floor-to-ceiling windows that cost more than his car. Then I saw it. A shadow moved across the glass behind him, sliding independently of any light source. My smile faded. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. Something was very wrong. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I pulled it out with trembling fingers, and Marcus didn't even notice. He was still gaping at my office like he discovered Atlantis. The message was simple. "You've seen too much." My heart hammered against my ribs. I glanced at the shadow again, but it had vanished. Panic clawed at my throat as I tried to open my phone's security app, but the screen glitched violently. Pixels scattered like disturbed ants, reforming into patterns that hurt to look at. "Marcus, we need to leave," I said, my voice steady despite the terror building in my chest. He ignored me, walking toward my desk, touching everything like a child in a museum. "How did you afford this? Did you marry some rich guy?" I didn't answer. My phone glitched again, and this time I saw it, a face forming in the static. Twisted. Wrong. Behind us, the elevator doors opened on their own. The lights inside flickered once, twice, then went dark completely. The shaft hummed with a descending whine. Someone or something was coming up. 6 years earlier, I'd sat in that cramped studio apartment with peeling wallpaper and a landlord who never fixed anything. My bank account had $73. Rent was due in 5 days, and I'd already eaten ramen for 14 meals straight. Marcus had stopped by unannounced, as usual, to show off his new watch. $3,000 of shiny metal that he wore like a crown. Still renting this dump. He'd laughed, sprawling on my second-hand couch. "Lena, you're 28. When are you going to get your life together?" I'd smiled and nodded, used to his casual cruelty. Our parents had always favored him, the successful son with a sales job and expensive taste. Meanwhile, I worked 2 jobs and barely scraped by. That night, after he left, I cried. Not because of his words, but because part of me believed them. The next morning, a glossy flyer appeared in my mailbox. Bold letters promised, "Build your empire. Real estate mastery with Victor Caldwell." Something about it felt different. Necessary. Like fate had dropped it through my mail slot that I signed up that same day. The hotel conference room buzzed with desperate energy, 200 people hoping to change their lives. I sat in the back row, notebook ready, watching Victor Caldwell take the stage. He was magnetic. Mid-50s, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. When he smiled, the entire room leaned forward. "You've been taught that wealth is luck," he began, his voice smooth as honey. "That some people are simply born to succeed while others struggle forever. I'm here to tell you that's a lie." For 2 hours, he spoke about property value, leverage, and financial freedom. He made it sound simple. Achievable. I scribbled notes until my hand cramped. After the seminar, as people filed out, I gathered my things slowly. When I looked up, Caldwell was staring directly at me. Our eyes met across the emptying room. His gaze held mine for 3 seconds too long. Something in his expression shifted, recognition maybe, or hunger. He smiled wider, and goosebumps rippled down my arms. I grabbed my notebook and hurried out, but I could feel his eyes on my back the entire way. 3 months later, I closed on my first property. A small duplex in a neighborhood everyone said was up and coming. It wasn't much, needed paint, new fixtures, a complete kitchen renovation, but it was mine. I'd saved every penny from both jobs, skipped meals, and studied property values until I dreamed in square footage. The down payment wiped out my savings, but I didn't care. I finally owned something. My first tenant moved in 2 weeks later. A quiet college student named Brian, who paid on time and never complained. Everything seemed perfect until week 3. Brian called me at 11 p.m., his voice shaking. "Ms. Lena, I don't want to sound crazy, but I keep seeing someone outside my window."
A man.
Just standing there in the dark, watching. I drove over immediately, but found nothing. No footprints in the flower bed. No evidence anyone had been there at all. "Probably just stress from finals," I'd said, trying to sound confident, but when I walked to my car, I felt it too. The sensation of being watched. I spun around, scanning the shadows. Nothing. Just darkness and the distant hum of traffic. Marcus showed up at the duplex unannounced during my first major renovation. He'd heard through our mother that I'd bought property and couldn't resist seeing my little project. He stood in the half-gutted living room, laughing so hard he had to brace himself against a paint-stained wall. His 3 friends, all equally obnoxious, stood behind him, smirking. "This is what you spend your money on," he gasped between laughs. "Lena, this place is pathetic. It's literally falling apart. You could have bought a decent car, traveled, lived your life. Instead, you bought a dump." His friends chuckled. One of them took a photo, probably for social media, that I felt my face burn, but I kept my voice level. "It's an investment." An investment in what? Tetanus shots. More laughter. I turned back to my work, ignoring them until they finally left. But as they walked to Marcus's car, I happened to glance across the street. Victor Caldwell stood beside a black sedan, watching us. He wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky. When he noticed me looking, he raised one hand in a slow wave. Then he got in his car and drove away. Brian disappeared 3 months into his lease. His rent had been on time, his apartment clean, and then one morning he was simply gone. No furniture removed. No notice given. His coffee mug still sat on the counter, half full and growing mold. I filed a police report, but they weren't interested. "College kids bail on leases all the time," the officer told me. He probably went home to his parents. But Brian's parents called me 2 weeks later, frantic. They hadn't heard from him either. I went back to the apartment, searching for clues. In the bedroom closet, I found a note tucked under the carpet edge. The handwriting was jagged, frantic.
"The walls whisper at night. He promised us safety, but there's something wrong with these buildings. I can't stay here. If you're reading this, get out too." My hands shook as I read it 3 times. Get out. Out of what? Then I saw it. Scratched into the doorframe in tiny letters, a symbol I didn't recognize. Circular, with lines radiating outward like a corrupted SUNIT, looked old, ancient. And it definitely hadn't been there during my initial inspection. I convinced myself I was imagining things. Stress. First-time landlord jitters. I installed security cameras at all entry points, top-of-the-line systems that recorded everything in high definition. For 2 weeks, the footage showed nothing unusual. Tenants came and went. Mail was delivered. A stray cat wandered through the yard. I started sleeping better. Then Marcus sent me a text. "Heard your tenant vanished. Told you that place was cursed still." I ignored him and checked my camera footage again. Nothing. Just normal daytime activity. But that night, unable to sleep, I scrolled through the recordings frame by frame. At 3 a.m. on Tuesday, camera 2 captured something that made my blood freeze. In the reflection of the window behind the front door, a shadow moved. Not a shadow of anything in the frame. It moved independently, sliding across the glass like oil. I watched it 5 times, each viewing worse than the last. The shadow had the vague shape of a person. Tall. Watching, I checked the other cameras. Nothing. Just that one reflection, that one impossible moment. I didn't sleep that night. The dreams started a week later. Every night, the same vision. Victor Caldwell walking through my properties, his shoes leaving blackened footprints that burned into the floors. In the dreams, he never spoke. He just smiled that too wide smile and touched the walls, and wherever his fingers pressed, the paint blistered and peeled. I'd wake up gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat, and the fifth night, the dream was different. Caldwell stood at the foot of my bed, staring down at me. His eyes reflected no light. "You're doing so well, Lena," he whispered. "Don't stop now." I jolted awake, my heart trying to escape my chest. Dawn light filtered through my curtains. Just a nightmare. Just my imagination working overtime. I stood up to make coffee, trying to shake off the fear. Then I looked down. Blackened footprints led from my bedroom door to the side of my bed. They were perfect. Detailed. As if someone had walked through ash and tracked it across my floor. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called the only person I thought might understand. A locksmith I'd hired last month. An older man who'd made strange comments about checking the bones of a building before installing new locks. His name was Arthur Wade. He answered on the first ring. Arthur arrived 30 minutes later with a leather satchel that looked older than both of us combined. He studied the footprints without touching them, his weathered face grave. "Victor Caldwell sold you these properties?" he asked quietly. "How did you know?" "Because I've seen these prints before." Arthur pulled out a small leather journal, flipping through pages of notes and sketches. 15 years ago, I worked on a dozen buildings in the warehouse district. Caldwell owned them all. People started disappearing. Nothing the police could prove, but everyone knew. My mouth went dry. What happened? The buildings burned down. All of them, same night. Electrical fire, they said. Arthur looked at me with ancient, tired eyes. But I know what I saw. Those buildings didn't just burn, they screamed. He showed me his journal. Page after page of the same symbol I'd found in Brian's apartment. The corrupted sun. The radiating lines. Caldwell isn't just a real estate mogul, Lena. He's made something dark work in his favor. A curse, a pact. Call it what you want. It feeds on envy and ambition, and it's hidden in the foundations of every property he touches. "That's insane," I whispered, but my voice lacked conviction. Arthur pointed at the footprints. "You have proof right here." Over the next 2 weeks, I visited every property I owned. I'd expanded to 5 buildings by then. Arthur came with me, and at each location, we found the symbols. Hidden in closets, carved under floorboards, etched into basement walls. They formed a pattern. A networked MY tenants reported similar experiences. Shadows that moved wrong, whispers in empty rooms, the sensation of being watched constantly. One woman showed me photos of her child's drawings, page after page of the same symbol, drawn over and over. "She's never seen this before," the mother insisted, her voice cracking. "She woke up one night and just started drawing. She won't stop." At my 4th property, an elderly tenant grabbed my wrist as I inspected his bathroom. His grip was surprisingly strong, his eyes fever bright. "He wants your soul," the old man whispered. "And your money. That's how it works. You think you're building wealth, but you're really building his power. Every property, every tenant. We're all feeding it." I yanked my hand away, my skin crawling. "Feeding what?" I demanded. But he just smiled, and his teeth looked too sharp. I tried warning Marcus. Called him from my car outside the 4th property, my hands still shaking from the encounter with the old man. "You need to stay away from Victor Caldwell," I said as soon as he answered. "Don't go to his seminars, don't buy anything from him, don't even. Are you seriously calling me with your conspiracy theories?" He laughed. "Lena, you sound insane. Maybe the stress of being a landlord is too much for you." "Marcus, I'm serious. There's something wrong with. I don't have time for this. Some of us have real jobs." He hung up. I sat in my car, staring at my phone, feeling helpless and furious. Why wouldn't anyone listen? That night, unable to sleep again, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I broke into Caldwell's office. It was easier than expected. His building had surprisingly weak security for someone so wealthy. I picked the lock on his private office and slipped inside, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. His desk was immaculate, organized. But in the bottom drawer, hidden under folders, I found a leather ledger. I opened it, and my blood turned to ice. Names. Hundreds of names, written in dark ink. Next to each name, a date and a dollar amount. Halfway down page 17, I found it, Marcus Wade. $47,000. Date, 3 weeks from now. I confronted Caldwell the next morning. Showed up at his office without an appointment, the ledger hidden in my bag, my phone recording everything. His secretary tried to stop me, but I pushed past her into his private office. Caldwell sat behind his massive desk, unsurprised, as if he'd been expecting me. Lena. He smiled that predatory smile. Please sit. What did you do to my brother? My voice shook with rage. Why is his name in your ledger? I haven't done anything to Marcus. Yet. Caldwell leaned back in his leather chair. But he came to me 3 weeks ago, asking about investment opportunities. He wants what you have. Isn't that interesting? Stay away from him. Or what? His voice remained pleasant, but something shifted in his eyes. Something ancient and hungry. You'll expose me? Tell people I'm running some supernatural real estate scheme? They'll think you're crazy. You know they will. A gust of wind rattled the windows, despite being 40 floors up and all windows being closed. Papers scattered from his desk, and among them, I saw blueprints. I grabbed one before he could stop me. A property valuation for a building I'd never heard of, Meridian Towers. The estimated value, -$7 million. How could a property have negative value? Caldwell's smile vanished. Put that down. I ran from his office with the blueprint, ignoring his shouts, and drove straight to Arthur's workshop. He studied the valuation for 10 minutes in silence, his expression growing darker. This is the anchor, he finally said. Every curse needs one. A central point where all the power flows. If we can find this building, we might be able to break his hold. But the value is negative. Does that mean it doesn't exist? No. It means it exists in debt. Built on stolen land, cursed ground, or... Arthur trailed off, flipping through his journal again. Or it was paid for with something other than money. That night, I searched my own properties more thoroughly. In the basement of my third building, hidden behind a false wall I'd never noticed before, I found a small wooden box. Inside was an amulet. Silver, tarnished with age, with the corrupted sun symbol etched into its surface. The moment my fingers touched it, warmth spread up my arm. Not comforting warmth. Fever warmth. Wrong warmth. I nearly dropped it, but something made me hold on. The amulet pulsed like a heartbeat, and for just a moment, I saw Caldwell's office. Saw him standing at his window, looking directly at me despite the miles between us. His lips moved. You shouldn't have taken that. 2 days later, another tenant disappeared. This time from my best property, a renovated townhouse in the city's nicest neighborhood. The tenant, a young professional named Kyle, had seemed happy. Stable. His rent was always early. But he vanished between Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning. His car remained in the driveway. His phone went straight to voicemail. His worried girlfriend filed a police report that went nowhere. I stood in his empty apartment, the amulet heavy in my pocket, and realized Caldwell's influence was accelerating. Whatever power he wielded, it was growing stronger, or maybe I was getting closer to something he wanted to keep hidden. My phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered, my hand trembling. Stop, Lena. The voice was distorted, mechanical, but I recognized the cadence. Caldwell. Stop digging, stop investigating, or it will be too late. You're in deeper than you realize. Too late for what? Too late to save yourself. Too late to save Marcus. Too late to stop what's already in motion. A pause. You have until midnight Saturday. Walk away from all of it. Your properties, your investigation, everything. Or I'll take everything you love. The line went dead. I checked my calendar. Saturday was 4 days away. Arthur called me to his workshop that evening. His face looked older, more worn, as if the investigation was draining years from him. "I need to tell you the truth about Caldwell," he said, pouring us both coffee with shaking hands. "What I saw 15 years ago." He explained that Caldwell had been a failed developer, drowning in debt, until he found something. A ritual. An old practice that let him bind supernatural entities to properties in exchange for unprecedented success. But the entities demanded payment, the envy and ambition of others, the literal life force of tenants, and eventually, souls. Every person who disappears from your buildings. Arthur's voice cracked. They're not gone. They're trapped. Feeding the curse. Making Caldwell richer, more powerful. "That's impossible," I whispered. "You've seen the footprints. You've felt the amulet pulse. You know I'm telling the truth." He grabbed my shoulders, his grip desperate. "He'll come for you next, Lena. You've built too much, too fast. You've attracted too much envy, especially from Marcus. That envy is fuel. And when Caldwell comes to collect, there's nothing left of you but a name in that ledger." I thought of Marcus. My arrogant, cruel, but still human brother. How do I stop him? Arthur pulled out a map, spreading it across his workbench. Red circles marked locations across the city, dozens of them. These are all Caldwell's properties, past and present. The ones that burned, the ones still standing, everything. He tapped the center of the map. And here. This is where it started. The Meridian Towers site. If we can break the curse there, the rest might collapse. Might. Arthur looked at me with haunted eyes. "I don't know if it will work. But it's the only chance we have." I spent the next 2 days gathering everything I needed. Arthur helped me map out which properties contained the symbols, how they connected, where the power seemed strongest. The amulet pulsed constantly now, growing warmer each hour. Marcus called once, his voice strangely subdued. "Mom says you're acting weird. Are you okay?" For a moment, I almost told him everything. Almost explained about Caldwell, the curse, the danger he was in. But I knew he wouldn't believe me. He never believed me about anything. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just busy. With your rental properties." A pause. "You know, I've been thinking about investing too. Caldwell is doing a new seminar next month." "No." My voice came out sharp. "Stay away from him, Marcus. Promise me." "Why?" "Lena, what's going on?" But I couldn't answer. I hung up and stared at Arthur's map, tracing the lines between properties. They formed a pattern. A shape. The same corrupted sun from the symbols, but massive, stretching across the entire city. And at its center, an empty lot where Meridian Towers was supposed to stand. I checked the property records. The lot had been sold and resold 17 times in the past decade. Every owner had tried to develop it. Every project had failed, bankrupt, often with the developers disappearing entirely. "We need to go there," I told Arthur. "Tonight." The lot was surrounded by chain-link fence covered in no trespassing signs. Arthur cut through the fence with bolt cutters, and we slipped inside, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The ground felt wrong beneath my feet. Not quite solid. Not quite stable. In the center of the lot, concrete foundation blocks jutted up like broken teeth, the only remains of multiple failed construction attempts. I pulled out the amulet. It burned hot now, vibrating in my palm. The symbols etched into its surface glowed with faint light. "He knows we're here," Arthur whispered as if in response. My phone rang. "Caldwell again. You're making a mistake, Lena. That land is mine. Those properties are mine. You've built your little empire on my generosity, and now you want to destroy it all. You're trapping people, taking their souls." Caldwell laughed, the sound distorted through the phone. "I'm making them successful. Every person who invests with me gets exactly what they want. Wealth beyond imagination. The cost is irrelevant. The cost is their humanity. Humanity is overrated. Power is what matters. I hung up and turned to Arthur. How do we break the curse? Before he could answer, car headlights flooded the lot. A black sedan pulled up to the fence. Caldwell stepped out, his silver hair gleaming. And behind him, looking confused and angry, was Marcus. What are you doing here? I shouted at my brother. Marcus pushed past Caldwell, stumbling across the uneven ground. I could ask you the same thing. Mr. Caldwell called me, said you were in trouble. Said you'd been stealing from him. He's lying. Marcus, get away from him. But my brother shook his head, his expression hardening. No. I'm tired of your drama, Lena. Tired of you acting like you're better than everyone. You got lucky with a few properties, and now you think you're some kind of genius. The old jealousy. The old resentment. I could see it poisoning his expression, making his eyes hard. And I realized, that's what Caldwell wanted. Marcus's envy. His bitterness. It was fuel, just like Arthur had said. Marcus, listen to me. I kept my voice steady. Caldwell isn't human. He's using people's ambition to power something dark. Every property he touches is cursed. You sound insane. Caldwell smiled wider. She's been under a lot of stress, Marcus. The pressure of managing her properties has clearly broken something. It happens. Not everyone is cut out for success. Marcus nodded, believing him. Of course he did. When had my brother ever chosen me over a stranger who told him what he wanted to hear? Then something changed in Marcus's face. Confusion. Fear. He swayed slightly, reaching for his temple. I don't. Something's wrong. I feel. He collapsed. I ran to Marcus, but Caldwell moved faster. He grabbed my brother's arm, lifting him effortlessly despite being half his size. The curse is spreading, Lena. Can you feel it? Your brother has so much envy, so much resentment. He'll feed my power for years. Let him go. I pulled out my phone, dialing 911, but the screen went black. Dead, despite being fully charged that morning. Arthur stepped forward, his face pale but determined. You can't have them, Caldwell. I know what you are. I know how you started. Caldwell's smile faltered for the first time. The old architect. I wondered if you'd gotten involved. Still carrying guilt from the warehouse fire. Those people died because of you. Those people died because they were weak. Just like Marcus. Caldwell dragged my brother toward the foundation blocks. But their weakness made me strong. Made all of this possible. I looked around desperately. The symbols on the ground were glowing now, pulsing in rhythm with the amulet in my hand. Then I understood. The amulet wasn't just a symbol of Caldwell's power, it was a key. A way to redirect the curse. I raised it above my head and smashed it against the nearest foundation block. The amulet shattered, and the world exploded with light. The light burned cold and bright, spreading across the lot in waves. Caldwell screamed, an inhuman sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He dropped Marcus and stumbled backward, his form flickering like a broken hologram. What did you do? His voice echoed strangely, layered with dozens of other voices. The people he'd consumed. The souls trapped in his properties. The symbols carved into the foundation blocks blazed with white fire. Cracks spread across the concrete, and from those cracks, light poured out like liquid. Arthur grabbed Marcus and dragged him toward the fence. Lena, run. But I couldn't move. The ground beneath my feet was shaking, and I realized the curse wasn't just breaking. It was collapsing inward, pulling everything into this central point. The Meridian Tower's site was the anchor, just like Arthur had said, and destroying the amulet had severed its connection to all the other properties. Caldwell's form twisted and stretched, his silver hair turning to smoke, his expensive suit dissolving. Beneath the illusion, something ancient and terrible looked at me with eyes like black holes. You've ruined everything, the voices screamed. Decades of work. Centuries of planning. All for your pathetic sense of morality. The building shook harder. The cursed foundation was imploding. The blackouts started immediately. All across the city, properties connected to Caldwell's network lost power simultaneously. I watched from the lot as building after building went dark, lights flickering out in a spreading wave. News helicopters circled overhead, their searchlights illuminating the chaos below. People evacuated into the streets, confused and frightened. And in the distance, I heard sirens. Dozens of them. Marcus woke up as Arthur dragged him through the fence. What happened? Where? Then he saw Caldwell. Saw the thing Caldwell was becoming. My brother's face went white with terror. Lena! Marcus screamed. Get away from it. I wanted to run. Every instinct told me to flee. But something held me in place. Not the curse, but certainty. If I left now, Caldwell would reconstitute. Find another anchor point. Start over. More people would disappear. More souls would be trapped. I had to finish this. I picked up a shard of the shattered amulet. It cut my palm, and blood welled up, hot and red. The moment my blood touched the cursed ground, the symbols flared brighter. Caldwell lunged at me, his form barely humanoid now. You can't stop me. I am the foundation of this city's wealth. I am woven into every successful deal, every profitable investment. You're a parasite, I said quietly. And parasites die when you remove their host. I pressed my bleeding hand against the largest foundation block and whispered the only thing that felt right. I deny you. I break your hold. These properties are mine by right, not yours by curse. The light exploded outward one final time. When I opened my eyes, dawn was breaking. I lay on cold ground, Arthur crouching beside me, his weathered face creased with concern. Is it over? I croaked. Look. I sat up slowly, my body aching like I'd run a marathon. The Meridian Towers lot was empty. Not just empty, pristine. The cursed foundation blocks had vanished completely, leaving only clean earth and the distance. I could see my properties. All of them. Still standing. The curse is broken, Arthur said softly. The properties are clean now. Just buildings. No more shadows, no more symbols, no more disappearances. And Caldwell. Arthur pointed to a pile of ash near where the foundation blocks had been. Mixed in with the ash was a single silver cufflink, tarnished and cracked. Gone. Whatever he was, whatever pact he made, you severed it. The entity that gave him power has moved on. Arthur helped me stand. Your brother is asking for you. Marcus sat by the fence, his expensive clothes torn and dirty, his face stunned. When he saw me, he stood on shaking legs. Lena, He trailed off, looking lost. I saw things. In my head. Felt things. Like something was draining the life out of me. That was Caldwell's curse. And you stopped it. Not a question. A realization. His eyes filled with tears. All those times I called you pathetic, and you were building something real while I was just showing off borrowed money and leased possessions. I didn't know what to say. An apology felt too small for years of cruelty. Marcus took a shaky breath. I'm sorry. For everything. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. I never listened. I hugged him then, and he collapsed against me, sobbing. The next few weeks were surreal. The city launched investigations into Caldwell's properties, but found nothing suspicious. Just normal buildings with normal histories. The supernatural elements had vanished with the curse. My properties were appraised by 3 independent firms. The valuations came back identical. $750 million. My little rental empire, built from desperation and determination, had somehow become one of the city's most valuable portfolios. News outlets wanted interviews. Local woman builds real estate empire from nothing. They called me an inspiration, a self-made success story. They had no idea how close I'd come to losing everything. Arthur came by my office, my real office, in a building I now owned outright, to say goodbye. He was retiring, moving to the coast, finally letting go of the guilt he'd carried for 15 years. "You did what I couldn't," he said, shaking my hand. "You faced the darkness and won. I had help. You had courage." He smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him. "Use this empire well, Lena. Build something good." I promised I would. Marcus came by that evening. He'd quit his sales job and was working on something new, a non-profit to help people avoid predatory investment schemes. "I figure if I nearly got consumed by a supernatural real estate curse, other people are probably falling for regular scams all the time," he explained sheepishly. We sat in my office as the sun set, watching the city lights flicker on building by building. My city. My properties. Clean now. Safe. But I couldn't shake one final thought. The final confrontation had broken Caldwell's empire completely. His properties sold at auction, the proceeds going to a victims fund I'd helped establish. Tenants who'd disappeared started turning up, confused, missing time, but alive. Whatever had trapped them released its hold when the curse broke, and my brother, humbled and changed, became my business partner. Together, we renovated the buildings I'd bought, turning them into affordable housing. No more hidden symbols. No more supernatural shortcuts. Just honest work. But sometimes, late at night in my penthouse office, I'd see shadows move in ways they shouldn't. I'd hear whispers in the elevator shaft when no one else was around. Arthur had said the entity giving Caldwell power had moved on. But moved on where? To whom? I thought about his final words, distorted through layers of stolen voices. I am woven into every successful deal, every profitable investment. Real estate empires rose and fell every day. Ambitious people made fortunes overnight. Someone somewhere was probably accepting a deal right now, trading something precious for guaranteed success. And they had no idea what they were truly paying. I looked at my city, my empire, my hard-won victory, and made a promise to myself. I would watch. If another Victor Caldwell emerged, if another curse began spreading through foundations and frameworks, I would stop it. If only I had trusted my instincts sooner, I whispered to the empty office, remembering every ignored warning sign, every moment I doubted myself. But I'd learned my lesson. Courage, insight, and persistence had defeated Caldwell's greed and envy. And if darkness ever threatened my city again, I'd be ready.